Behold the light of Tempestra.
It's game over for you, Tempestra.
I remember that episode of the animated series, like an arcade game that came to life for some reason. That's a deep cut for Shredder's Revenge, but people who made that game really loved the 87 series, so what are you gonna do? Anyway, how do you do, folks? Welcome, Jagger Newman here for the Game Reserve, and I have another industry influencers for you today, and today we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the juggernaut pop culture franchise of the late 80s and the early 90s, and one that has had a pretty significant impact on not just pop culture, but video games in particular. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So, a little background on the series at large. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a comic book series, an independent comic book by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. It was originally intended as a parody of popular comic books at the time, like the New Mutants and Daredevil, but the storyline that the pair came up with was so good that the series was able to garner a pretty sizable cult following during its initial run. So much so that they would go on to Playmates and inquire about a toy deal, which of course led to the iconic 1987 cartoon, which is really where the Ninja Turtles became the pop culture icons that they are today. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the biggest franchise of the late 80s and early 90s. Kids just couldn't get enough of this stuff, and, well, it's still going strong today. And like a lot of franchise I talked about here, Turtles has had a pretty big impact on video games, though I think you could argue that its impact is more related to just pop culture in general. There is still a good deal to talk about here. For starters, I feel like Ninja Turtles is important in pop culture history because I think it's what really introduced a lot of the younger generation to the concept of martial arts, ninjas, samurai, and a lot of Asian culture in general. Now, it's not to say that the West wasn't getting exposure to stuff like that before Ninja Turtles came out. After all, the Ninja Turtles comic books were partially inspired by old martial art films like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan films. But while those movies mostly appeal to adults, Ninja Turtles appealed to a younger audience, and because of that, it had a much larger reaching scope than a live-action film for adults would. And I feel that's important that Ninja Turtles came out when it did, because not too long after it ended its run, and maybe even while it was running as well, that's when anime started to get introduced to the West as well, with stuff like Sailor Moon, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff. I don't think there would have been as much acceptance of these properties if it wasn't for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And today, anime is such a staple of pop culture that it's almost as big as just American comic books now. And I think we do have the Turtles to thank for that. Maybe not completely, but I do feel like it played a big hand in really exposing people to that and, being open to, that entirely different culture of different comic books, movies, animation, and stuff like that. And it also is telling that a lot of future Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles properties, especially the 2003 series, would take some influence from anime as well. Hell, it was made by 4Kids, for crying out loud. And that exposure to all that has also become very popular with video games as well. I feel like it was the success of Ninja Turtles that we got games like Ninja Gaiden and what have you. And even now, the idea of playing as ninjas, samurais, martial artists, and all that stuff is still a very popular theme in video games. So, yeah, again, while Ninja Turtles might not have been directly responsible for all that, I do feel it played a big hand in bringing all that to the West, so I think we have that to thank for it. If you're looking for something that has had a bit more obvious effect on gaming, I think we can look no further than the beat 'em up genre. One of the biggest landmarks in the genre was definitely the 1989 arcade game Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which, while there were plenty of other beat 'em up games that came before, like Double Dragon, Final Fight, and Golden Axe, I can't think of another game before or after that really demonstrated the level of polish that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game did. The controls were barely smooth, the graphics were just unbelievable. The fact that it was 4 players all at once was just mind-blowing, and the player count was just incredible for the time. While it wasn't super innovative in regards to the genre, there was just no game at the time that could compare to it. It was just one of the single biggest arcade games of the time. And it was so popular that its template would be copied in a bunch of other games. So you had stuff like the X-Men arcade game, the Cowboys of Mesa had a very similar arcade game as well, The Simpsons, and even games where you wouldn't think the beat-em-up genre was necessarily a good fit, like Spider-Man or The Punisher, also took influence from it, like just with the high-definition graphics, like the surprisingly complex moveset that the characters tend to have. Again, you have Ninja Turtles to thank for that, for really showing the world like what could be done with the beat 'em up. It's still a standard that is followed today. Just the fact that games like River City Girls and even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, it still pays a lot of homage to that original arcade game. I think they even sell like miniature reproduction versions of the old arcade game, which is really cool. And of course, there's a great Cowabunga collection as well. And really, that's another area where I feel like Ninja Turtles has really influenced the industry, and that's in the simple fact that it made the transition to video games, and it did so seamlessly. Now, again, that's not to say that there weren't licensed video games before the Ninja Turtles arcade machine. You had stuff based on Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. The angry video game nerd has made a living essentially looking at all the movie-based games on the NES. But I feel like Ninja Turtles is significant because it was the first time you had a game based on a licensed property that was arguably just as good as the property it was based on. And the reason it was as good as it was because, rather than try to get innovative, they just took a pre-existing genre, in this case the beat 'em up, and just applied a Turtles paint job to it. And when I say that, I'm not saying that it was a half-ass paint job too. As you can see, just looking at these old arcade cabinet sprites, it's a really detailed paint job with all the different enemies, the animations, the backgrounds, the music. It is all right out of the old cartoon, and you pair that with just how silky smooth the gameplay is. Again, it just makes for probably the best beat 'em up of its era, and even today it's still top of its class. And again, it's not because it is super innovative or anything, it just did the genre better than anything else at the time. And when it comes to licensed media, that's really how I feel you should do it. There's always this idea that games always need to be innovative to be worth playing, but that's not really the case. Games can still be worth playing if you just take the time to make it damn good. For example, Batman on NES. Do we really remember this game because it is a innovative 2D side-scroller? No, we remember Batman because it's a really good 2D side-scroller. With Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue. Do we remember that game because it was an innovative 3D platformer? No, we remember it because it was a really good 3D platformer for the time. Even today, do we remember RoboCop Rogue City? Was that as popular as it was last year because it was an innovative FPS? No, we enjoyed it as much as we did because it was a really good FPS. And, that is the trick to doing a good licensed game. Just find a franchise, figure out some genre where it actually makes sense to have that series, and then just make it really good. Just polish it to a mere gleam. The reason so many licensed games end up being as bad as they are is because, like, they're often, made for the purposes of cross promotion. So really rushed development time, very little money thrown at it. By design, they are half-assed, and that's sadly more the standard than all the examples I've given so far. But Ninja Turtles always showed us that, if you take a little more time, put a little more effort into it, and really think about the genre you're using, you can make a really good FPS. Make a really good video game adaptation. And I think it's telling that even now, Turtles games still get quite a bit of attention when they do come out. With games like Shredder's Revenge, and even a game based on Mutant Mayhem or the 2012 series, people still take time to play these games. And while Ninja Turtles has had plenty of bad games over the years, the fact that when a game in the series is really good, it ends up being really, really good, I think that's telling that people really were influenced by this franchise. So, yeah, Ninja Turtles, the video game industry does owe it a hell of a lot. Maybe not as much as other franchises that I've talked about here. In fact, you could probably argue that other franchises have probably done more in regards to what I'm talking about than TMNT. But I still think the influence is there, and yeah, I'm happy to showcase it. So, but you know what? I've already talked about most of the games based on the 87 series. I remember when I did the Cowabunga collection, when I initially started doing the series, because I was right around when Mutant Mayhem came out. So rather than dig into that, I thought, you know what? Maybe I should talk about some games from my generation of TMNT. So I hope you guys will join me tomorrow as I showcase Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first game based on the 2003 series. I hope I'll see you guys then.